Hello everyone and thanks for joining me for this new video. Today I'm very excited because this is my first video with version 1.4 of OxyProps, and it will also be the first video using Bricks Builder because from version 1.4 OxyProps supports Bricks Builder. And to view OxyProps, or I should say Bricks Props in action in Bricks, we will use material from this challenge from Frontendmentor. I will give you the link in the description so you can download the assets and follow along with me. So we will build this 3 columns preview card component, which will be a good opportunity to see together color management, layout options, and building reusable components. So this is the result we will achieve together. We have this 3 columns card component. It's responsive to light and dark mode, and it's also responsive to viewport width. So if you don't know Frontmentor yet, I encourage you to go and have a look. You can create an account, it's completely free. Of course, you can unlock the pro version and you will get access to premium challenges. But if you want to practice with the free ones, you already have a lot of good opportunities. So let's select this challenge. As a free member, you get access to all the assets except the Sketch and Figma design files, but we don't need them today. I already did subscribe to the challenge, but you will have to subscribe and then you can visit the challenge hub and download the starter pack. And in the starter pack, we get views of the design. So this is what we will build together today. These are the active states. This is the desktop design. So we can see that the button is plain and outlines when active or hovered. We have a desktop preview and we also have the mobile design. The mobile, the desktop. So we can see that we have 3 columns with 3 cards, and on mobile they stack on top of each other. So I'll keep these for reference. We also have images. We have a favicon and we have SVGs of the cards. There is boilerplate HTML, but we won't need it. And we have a style guide with information about colors, typography, font size, and font family. Okay, so let's start building. I will start in my BricsProps dashboard by configuring the colors for this build. So I will go to the colors section of my dashboard. The style guide states that a very light gray will be used for background, headings, and buttons. And we have an HSL specification, which is 0.95%. OxyProps tells me this is shade 25. I will define my light mode and I will use 25 as my surface one, and I will use the following ones. Maybe we won't need them today, but it doesn't matter. I will define them for all my surfaces. Then we have a bright orange. I will use my brand color for this one. Bright orange is 31, 77, 52. That's shade 100. I will use shade 100 for my light mode and define 300 for my hover state. The next color is a dark cyan. I will use my accent color. The HSL definition is 184, 122, shade 500. Let's set it for my light mode. And I will use my visited color for the last one, which is a very dark cyan. Once again, the style guide gives me an HSL specification. It's 179, 113. Let's set my light mode to use it. That's this one. And I can save my settings. In the style guide, my body font size is set to 15 pixels. My typography is set to 1 rem, which is 16. I like having big fonts, so I will keep 1 rem and I will leave the other settings like this. Let's create a new page. This will be 3 columns challenge. Publish and edit with bricks. So in bricks, let's define our font families. I'll go to my theme, typography. For the headings, the style guide states it is big shoulders. Display, this one with a 700 font weight. And my body font family will be Lex and Dika. Let's save. We have finished our initial setup and I will add a section. So I have my section with its inner container and I want my section to be full height. So I'll go and get the full class for the minimum height. Perfect, my section is full height. And I want my container to be centered, not on top. So I will select the section, the parent, and I will add the class supercenter, this one that centers everything. And now my container is centered in the middle of my page, which is 100 VH minimum height. The default width for my container is a bit wide, I think. So I will give it a maximum width of 60 rem. Perfect. So now that we have our container, we will need 3 columns inside this container, but we will see this a little later. So we will first start by building a card. So I will add a div, and inside this div, we will have an SVG. We have a heading, a text, and another text for the button. Let's give my div some padding. So in the OxyProps class context menu, you have 3 different options for padding. The first one adds padding on all sides. The second one is padding block. Padding block is a logical property, a CSS logical property, which means you add padding along the block axis, which for people using right to left or left to right languages is top bottom. And the next one is the inline padding, which adds padding along the inline axis, left right for left to right and right to left languages, and padding block top and bottom. I want a padding on all sides and let's set it to 5. Perfect. Let's set my background color. Always make sure I'm on the element, not on the class. And my background color will be my brand color. For this SVG, let's go and select the image. I already loaded the image from Frontmentor, and this is the first one. My heading will be an H1. It writes sedan. Let's check, that's plural, sedans. Okay, Bricks has little troubles refreshing. Let's do it again. This one, insert. Okay, good. Let's save. This text, let's use some lorem ipsum generated for us, and the button says learn more. Okay, let's add some spacing inside our card. So I select the div. I need it to have a display of flex. I don't want it to be a row, I want it to be a column. And what did I do with this SVG? Okay, that's interesting what Bricks is doing here. So let's fix that and give it a width of max content. Perfect. Save. So back to my container. I want to add vertical spacing between the elements. So I will add a gap. And let's go. I'll move it so we can see. Let's go for a gap, maybe less. Yes, a gap of 3. And that's perfect. My text will have a color of white. So these are logical colors, meaning they are color scheme responsive. So if I choose the WB, white first, means it will be white in light mode and black in dark mode. The other one, BW, will be black in light mode and white in dark mode. So I want this one to be white in light mode. Perfect. My text, the style guide tells us that's also a white, but with an opacity. So let's set it to white and then add an opacity of 70, but the style guide says it's 75. Here we are, 75. And to have a look at what the card actually looks like in our 3 columns layout, let's select the container and quickly give it a class of grid 3. And this is the current state of our card. Let's go and create our button. And for this, I will create a custom class. I will name it C-BTN. I like to prefix my classes. The framework classes are prefixed with O, and this one is prefixed with C for custom. Let's create the class. And in this normal state, this button has a white background and the text, the color of the card. So I'll start by doing something very simple and fast, and then we will see together another way of doing things which is much more maintainable and much more scalable. Maybe a bit slower in the beginning, but then you will decide if you are building a button that you will use many times on your site. Maybe you will like the second option. But let's start by giving the button a background of my surface 1. Because our design guide states that this color is used for the backgrounds and for the buttons. I will give the text a color of brand. I will give the button some padding. So let's add a padding 2, maybe a bit more. Let's try a padding 4, that's better. And link, and on the side, I will add a bit too much, a padding of 6. Okay, we have a width issue because Bricks by default gives 100% to my text, so I will give it a max width of max content. Of course, I need to adjust my padding right also. Okay, and let's give it a border. So the border width will be a border 2. The style will be solid. The color will be my surface 1. And the radius, I will link them all, will be a radius round. Okay, let's save. And then we have our normal state defined. Maybe top and bottom padding are a bit too much. Let's give it a size 3. Okay, that's much better. Let's save. And now let's take care of the hover state. I grab the hover state and on hover, my background is transparent and my typography color is my surface 1. Let's save and maybe have a look at the front end. Here we are. Our hover state is okay. We would like to have a pointer cursor, but that's because we haven't defined a link yet. And if I compare to our reference design, I certainly have too much padding in my card. So let's make a few adjustments. Change the padding on the card for a padding of 4. And I will group those 3 elements. So I will wrap it with the block. And my block is a flex container, vertical, and I will give it a gap of 2. And let's change this gap to a gap of 4. Perfect. Back to the front end. Let's refresh, and that's much better. Let's fix this cursor. Grab my text, make it a link. We'll just #, back to the front end, refresh, and now we have a pointer, and we have our normal and overstate. Perfect. Maybe let's just have a look at our reference. Here it is. Quite close. Good. Visual aspect of the overstate is a bit strange in breaks sometimes. Usually if you refresh, things will be fixed. Here we are. Just needed a refresh. So now, from this state, we can duplicate the card. So let's duplicate it 2 times. And we have 3 cards. But this one is a different color. So I would like it to be my accent color, and this one would be my visited color, which is not too bad for the cards, but for our buttons, we have an issue with the colors. Because I would like, of course, the button color to match the card color. So we have several options. One would be to create a modifier class for my button, like CBTN cyan, for example, and modify the colors. But I would like to show you another way, which is my favorite way. And I will delete these 2 copies. And let's go back to my card, and I will work at the card level, because everything inside the card is standard, and I want the card, the parent, to be the driver. I don't know if it's the correct word, but I want the card to handle color modifications. So on the card, I will create a class C-brand. And on this class, I will go to the custom CSS. I will use my context menu with anything just to save me a few time and get the root wrapper. And I will say that _color is my var _o- brand color. Just as a naming convention, I use the __ when defining CSS variables at the component level, when I use the _o for variables at the framework level. So do as you wish. Find your own naming convention. Find a naming that works for you. But that's mine. The underscore means it's a local variable. And then I will grab my color, copy it to my clipboard, and I will go back to my card, my background, and then my background will be, sorry, I must be at the element level, and I will replace my background by my __ Nothing changed, perfect. And now let's go to our button, select the class, and here in the color, let's use also our __ color. Okay, save. And now we can come to the card and duplicate it. Let's grab this brand class. I'll copy this CSS, remove this class, and I will create a new one, accent, and in the custom CSS, paste my code and replace brand by accent. And now, just with this class that sets the value of our __ color custom property, this is really why CSS variables are also called custom property, because what we just created is a custom property for our card plus button component. It's a color property that helps us to style the card background and the button typography colors. And let's go to the last one. Create a new class. And same thing, custom CSS. And this one will be my visited color. So now we have created a component and we can create as many as we want. We just have to create a new class that sets the color and the card will be styled accordingly. Maybe a last thing I would like to do to my button, make sure we are on the class, and I will go to the layout and I will replace this padding because I want my button to scale with the text. So I will clear all these values for the padding. And I will use a value. So this one is not in our menus. Actually it is, but not at the level I want for the button. So to simplify things, I will use this one, 10ch, but I will replace it. Top and bottom will be 0.75 ch, and left and right will be 1.75. And if you don't know about ch, ch is a CSS unit. It's a relative unit. It's relative to the text size because ch stands for character height. So by defining padding using ch unit, our button will scale with the text, meaning that if we want a big button, we can go to typography, change the font size. Let's put it here and have a look. And we can see that the button size scales smoothly with the font size. Okay, I think we're good with our button component. Let's change the image. This one is the SUV, and let's change the title. This one It's this one. Luxury. Let's save. And let's have a look at our front end. I refresh. Here we are. So let's grab our design to compare. Here we are. This is the design from our designer. So it's very close. Maybe we need a bit more padding on the buttons and a smaller text size. And we need the round corners around our container. So let's do that. Back to our button. Select the class. Go back to our layout. 2.5 ch. Okay, this is better, and maybe a smaller font size. Here we are. Now let's grab our container. We will define the border radius. So let's go to the border, link the radius together and define a radius of 2. But as you may notice, it's not visible yet because we need on our container to set an overflow of hidden. We have 2 ways to do that. We can either go to layout and down below, where is it? Here. In the miscellaneous, we have overflow and set it to hidden. And now we have our rounded corners. And another solution, I can delete this value, is to add the class overflow, and we have several ones. We want the overflow hidden. You can use the class if you don't want to go down in bricks menus. Okay, let's check on the front end. Perfect, we have our rounded corners and our hover effect. Now let's make this design responsive because we have designed the desktop version. And if you remember the mobile version, let's grab it. On the mobile version, the cards will stack on top of each other. So the simple way to do that, as we have set a grid of 3, is to go and set on small breakpoint. So I type SM for small dash grid, and I will set on the small breakpoint a grid of 1. Let's save and check. I'll refresh and I will open my DevTools and activate the responsive mode. That's this icon with the tablet and mobile view. And now I can modify my viewport size. It's not exact, it's a simulation. It's very useful. And when I reduce the size, okay, at the small breakpoint, the cards stack on top of each other. So that's interesting, but the style guide in the Frontendmentor challenge didn't tell us what happens between the desktop breakpoint and the small breakpoint, because I don't know what you think, but I would like an intermediate state where we go from 3 to 2 before going to 1. And we have several ways to achieve this result. So let's see together the different solutions we have and how to use them. So back in the builder, the first thing we could do, we did set a small breakpoint, but maybe we can set a medium one. So MD dash grid dash 2. So then we have a grid of 3 columns. At the medium breakpoint, we want to go down to 2 columns, and at the small breakpoint, we want to go down to 1 column. Let's see the result with this setting. So desktop, let's go down, medium, small. Okay, it works, but there's something strange here because we have only 3 cards in a grid of 2. There's a blank here, and maybe it could work for some design, but with our rounded corners here, I think it's a bit weird. So how can we fix this? One way would be to have the bottom card here fill the entire space at this breakpoint. So let's try to do this. Go back to the editor, grab the container. Actually, that's not the container, that's this card. And we will add a MD span of 2, which means that at the medium breakpoint, this card will span over 2 columns. And then at the small breakpoint, we want in to be, because at the small breakpoint, all cards will be stacked on top of each other. We want it to be back to a span of 1. Here we are. Let's have a look. I refresh and going down, medium, we have our grid 2, but the card spans over 2 columns. And going down to 1, perfect. They stack on top of each other, and it's back to spanning 1 column. Good. So we have achieved the desired result. But maybe, because that's a lot of class, maybe there is a way to achieve that in a more simple manner. So let's see what are our options. First, I will remove these spans from the card. I will go to my container. So on the container, we had to use 3 different classes. We have a grid 3, a grid 1 at the small breakpoint, and a grid 2 at the medium breakpoint. So let's remove them all. So now we have removed all the classes, and CSS grid maybe is not always the solution. In this case, we will try using Flexbox. And in the OxyProps or BricsProps framework, we have a special series of class that we will use, and this is the Flex card. So let's go for Flex cards and choose Flex cards of 3. And actually, I don't want the Flex cards, I want the Flex cards stretch. Here we are, and I'll go for the Flex card stretch of 2. Let's save. And as you see, I did apply this class at the container level, the parent level, and nothing special to the children elements, to the cards. Let's save. Refresh. Here we are on the front end. And now let's see how responsive this is. It shrinks. And you see, this does not depend on a breakpoint. It depends on the child element, on the card's width. So with the Flex cards 2, we have defined a minimum width of content 2. So the card will reduce until they reach this minimum width. When they reach the minimum width, they will wrap on 2 rows. And as we did set the Flex card stretch version, the elements will stretch to fill all the available space in the row. So we have two elements here. They will share the available space. Here we have only one. It will use all the available space. If we had 3 above and 2 below, it would be the same. They would share between the 3, and those 2 would share between the 2. And if I continue, now they stack on top of each other. Okay, so with this solution, you see that we achieved the same result, but with CSS Grid, we needed 3 classes, 3 different classes on the parent element, on the container, plus 2 different classes on the child element. 5 classes. Using Flexbox and this special FlexCards class from the framework, with only one class applied on the parent container, we have the same result, and it's automatically responsive. The class only defines a minimum width for the children element, and when they reach this minimum width, they will wrap on different rows. If you think that this is too small as a width, well, we can change the value and go from a FlexCard stretch 2 to a FlexCard stretch 3. Here we are, FlexCard stretch 3, and let's check. It reduces. Okay, so now the minimum width is the size 3, the content size 3. So it happens sooner. So now maybe one last thing that was not in the initial challenge, but as we are using OxyProps with Flexbox, we will try to set the dark mode version of our design. So let's see what it looks like in dark mode. Okay, we didn't do any special setting, and here is what our design looks like in dark mode. So maybe a few adjustments would be interesting. So let's go back to our plugin dashboard, to our colors, and let's adjust our brand, accent, and visited color for the dark mode. So this time I will set the dark version. If you remember, light version we did set to 100 and 300. I will keep the 100 in the dark version. We don't need the overstate, but I will set it anyway. You usually want a lighter shade in dark mode compared to your light mode. So for this one, let's keep 100. For the accent, light was 500. Here we have 85, which is a bit low. Let's go maybe to 200. And for our dark cyan color, we had 700. And let's go for a lighter one. Let's try 500, 300. Let's save. Here we are. Let's refresh. And that's much better. Let's add a light dark toggle element. Perfect. Save. And let's have a last look at our front end. This is our light version. This is our dark version. The responsive tools. And here we have our 3 cards layout, responsive to the screen, to the viewport width, and also to the user color scheme preference. And this brings our video to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot of things. How to use CSS custom properties to create components, reusable components that you can use at various places on your site and adjust them to your need by modifying only the necessary custom properties you did set. How to achieve a responsive design, either using CSS Grid or using Flexbox. And as you did notice, CSS Grid is not always the simple option. And also how to leverage the OxyProps Props color system to make your design responsive to dark and light modes. Subscribe to the channel for other videos like this one. Leave me a thumbs up to help spread the word about this video so that it can reach other users on YouTube. I wish you very good website builds and I see you in the next video.